Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you that I don't know, my name is Rachel Evans. I am the Executive Director of City Bridge Education. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for our Good Learning virtual tour and panel discussion. Throughout the event, my colleague Rashika, who has already put some text in the chat box, is going to be facilitating a chat. So if you haven't yet, please go ahead and introduce yourself, share what organization you're joining with, where you're from. We will say we love a good active chat box at City Bridge, and so we think events are healthy when people are chiming in both formally and informally throughout the event. So please feel free to jump in and let us know who you are and what brings you here this evening. So a little bit of context as to why we chose this particular topic for the focus of our discussion today. One thing that we know across the board is that the pandemic has shown us, has really highlighted for us, that school is about so much more than academics. School is about relationships. School is about safety. School is about trust. School is about joy. School is about connectedness to adults and peers who are trusted. And all of these things have been really, really hard to replicate via Zoom. I know a lot of you on this call right now are educators or you're school-based, and we have just seen really heroic efforts this year of trying to figure out how can we keep kids engaged when we're engaging with them through a camera and through a laptop, which is so much harder than when you're physically in a building. Those of you on the Zoom call tonight who are parents know the struggle of the Zoom fatigue that you see when you're working with a 6, 7, 10, 12-year-old who's just spent hours trying to engage with teachers and peers online. And no matter how hard our schools and our staff are working, there's really something that's lost and has been lost this year in that environment. We first heard about the wonderful work that the Good Projects team and the Good Learning Hub is doing several weeks ago, and really stepping in and saying, how can we create some of those things that have been lost in the pandemic? How can we actually create a space where students can go, they can have those connections with trusted adults, with students, they can engage in their academic work, and also have those other broader needs that they have as human beings met in the context of this hub and the work that we're doing together. We also know across the education community, there's been a lot of interest in different innovative approaches to education that have taken place. I think I saw that there's a City Bridge slide here that shares a little bit about who we are, but that's kind of that's our bread and butter at City Bridge, is figuring out what are new approaches to education that can really drive innovation and equity so that more and more students here in DC are receiving access to a really phenomenal education. And so when we heard about the good work the Hub was doing, we realized this was the exact type of community-driven, innovative, and truly equity-centered innovation that we wanted to highlight and that we wanted to draw attention to. I'm going to pass the mic over to my dear colleague, Tiffany Anderful, who is our Senior Director of Network Engagement. She's going to share a little bit more context about our panel and our panelists who will be joining us. And we're really looking forward to getting to know you all via questions in the chat and diving into this conversation today. Tiffany, take it away.
Thank you, Rachel. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for that welcome, Rachel. We are beyond excited to be here this evening to host this convening, really taking an opportunity to highlight the great work of Good Projects and specifically the Good Learning Hub. Who's Good Projects? Well, Good Projects is a nonprofit organization based in Southwest DC in the Greenleaf community. Good Projects' main goal is simple: to transition 500 families out of poverty by the year 2030. Today, we hope to do a few things through this convening. We hope to be able to build connection and empathy, but also create a space where our network can gain a deepened perspective and awareness of student and family experiences. We also want to be able to provide a space where it can share takeaways that support community solutions and a space to learn best practices around building community alliances. I'm proud to be your moderator for this evening, very excited about the opportunity, and would just like to name a few of our norms for this evening. As Rachel mentioned, we love a good chat box, and so we ask that you stay engaged with us virtually and use the chat box. We also want to note that for this evening, there will be a Q&A portion following the panel. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the Q&A button. If you are going through this panel and as you're listening and engaging with the panelists and you have questions that you'd like to have answered, we ask that you click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and insert questions there. We'll then return to those questions with the goal of having our panelists answer as many as possible for the live Q&A session that follows. Otherwise, we ask that you just stay engaged within the chat box. And aside from that, we are going to go through our panel discussion today. So the cadence for this evening will be quite simple. If we were not in this virtual environment, of course, we would all be able to be walking through the Good Learning Hub. But because we are in this virtual environment, we are going to begin with a short virtual tour or video of the Learning Hub. We'll then go into a panel discussion with our panelists and then move into the Q&A session. So our panelists for this evening. Are Dr. Erin Athey. She's an assistant professor at George Washington University. We also have the CEO and co-founder, Mr. Darius Baxter, the CEO and co-founder of GOODProjects. And we have Principal Tamika Sykes of Amadon Bowen Elementary School. And while Ms. Christine Spencer was planning to join us, she may not be able to join at this point, but she's the resident council president of James Creek, and we will definitely speak to her contributions to the GOODProjects Learning Hub. And so with that, we are going to proceed with our first portion of the evening, which will be the virtual tour of the Good Learning Hub. We are going to journey through the hub in the shoes of a student and see what is the path of a student as they enter the Good Learning Hub, and what are all of the moving parts that help make this a success. Let's watch. What an amazing video and tour. I personally had the opportunity to visit the Learning Hub, and I'll say that that tour really does give you a great snapshot of the journey in the shoes of a student. And so with that, I would love to welcome our panelists for this evening. Please join us. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, Darius, Mr. Darius Baxter, Dr. Erin Athey, and Principal Sykes. Thank you all so much for joining us. I just want to remind everyone before we get started again that during the panel discussion, feel free to continue to engage in the chat box, but if you have specific questions that you would like for our panelists to answer after the panel has concluded, please insert them in the Q&A box. If you look at the bottom of your screen and you click Q&A, there's an opportunity there for you to insert questions that we'll do our best to have the questions answered by our remarkable panelists at the end. So with that, we're going to jump right in. I have to start with you, Darius. Hello. How are you this evening?
Blessed, Black, beautiful, and highly favored. Just so grateful to even look at the number of participants that we have here, just as a testament to the work that this amazing team has done over the last, I mean, at this point, 12 months. So just truly grateful. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for asking, Tiffany.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us. Well, Darius, you know, at the start of the pandemic, you know, and when I think about good projects and what I've learned through this time, I know that you all started with a lot of your work in the Southwest community in Greenleaf, really being, you all were known for having an amazing summer camp that reached 200 students. You were known for providing a lot of after school support. Can you speak about what really led you to this somewhat of a pivot, right, to move to the creation of the Good Learning Hub, and specifically, what role have partnerships played in this entire process?
No, that's a great question, Tiffany. And it really shows by those that I'm joined on the panel with today. Good projects, specifically myself and my two co-founders have gotten a lot of attention over the last few years. And I think that we've appreciated, obviously we've benefited from it and our ability to impact communities. But we were very, very, very intentional when we started the Good Zones Initiative that we were not going to be the leaders of this movement, that the guidance had to come from the community in order for us to truly be successful. People, they discourage me a little bit from saying this, but I'll say it, you know, loud and proud, even with our funders on the line, you know, we're working to put ourselves out of business. And that doesn't happen by, you know, this term, how do you become a pillar in the community? We're not looking to be that. We're looking to support residents and resident-led organizations to become those supports for themselves. So the idea of the Learning Hub came from a resident council president. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to join us tonight for personal reasons, but you know, Miss Christine Spencer has gone above and beyond for the residents of the Southwest housing community. She's not alone in that. Ms. Rhonda Hamilton, Ms. Dina Walker, Ms. Belk, all the resident council presidents that that represent the community in ways that I can never think or imagine have stepped up. So when COVID came around, they came to me. They know I will proudly say I'm one of the best organizers in the business. And they said, Darius, we need a space for our kids to learn, even though schools are closed. Fix it. They didn't ask, they tell. And that's the type of relationship that we want. And by the grace of God, the Housing Authority was willing to make the accommodation. And then you'll hear from Ms. Erin Athey tonight as well. Her and her team of amazing students stepped up and said, we're going to create a COVID-safe environment. And then the pillars continued to fall. And by the grace of God, even we have Ms. Principal Sykes on the line as well, who's been an amazing partner, her and really all the educators from DCPS. So it's really been a group effort, Tiffany.
So thank you for that, Darius. And I know, and I've heard you say, we're not discouraging you. We know when we first spoke with you, we said, you know, you've really been casted as a visionary for the Good Learning Hub. And you immediately said, I am not the visionary. Instead, Miss Christine Spencer and all the others who you named are the visionaries, right? You said you're simply a humble servant. So can you speak a little bit more to the partnerships before we transition to learn a little bit more about a few of the partnerships that you have and what role they have played. There were a number mentioned in that virtual tour, but can you speak a little bit to that? And also, I'll add on to that and say, you know, in Ms. Spencer's absence, she really spoke about how she just gained trust in you and in good projects. From your perspective, can you speak to that as well? So the partnerships and how you work to build trust with community.
Yeah, well, to ever be considered a visionary, I think is an honor. But I consider myself a lot more of a listener than a visionary. But if you ask my girlfriend, she probably would say that I'm not that good of a listener. But professionally, I think I figured it out. Where I'm constantly finding myself in meetings and listening to panels like this with people that are working in the Southwest community that are geniuses in the work that they do. And I've been in this space long enough now to be able to say that passion is something that does not come, you know, it doesn't come on a silver platter, even in community work. You have a lot of people that maybe start for the right reasons, but find themselves dwindling over time. But I've been blessed from the day that we stepped foot in the Southwest community to be bombarded by individuals and organizations that are passionate and truly want to see an end to the issues that have plagued communities like Southwest across the country for far too long. We look at the Southwest housing community, these problems didn't start in the 40s. These problems didn't even start in the 1900s. The families that we serve that live on an average of about $14,500 a year, we're talking about extreme poverty here. These are Black families that date all the way back to the families that built the US Capitol when they were slaves. And I have been, you know, you use the term humble servant because that's all I can be. When I come to the table and there's people that are so smart that are doing this work, groups like, obviously I've mentioned Erin and her team at GW Hospital who come and, you know, there's no way that we would have been able to create a COVID safe environment. We've had no positive COVID tests since we started the Learning Hub. And that's been because of the work that they've done. Principal Sykes, as a representative of the amazing school system, and, you know, love it or hate it, they are trying their best and putting their best foot forward every single day. And even before the pandemic, you know, Principal Sykes is that type of principal that's coming early and staying late. And she's just representative of so many people that just continue to work every single day to ensure that the most underserved students in our city, the over 30,000 that are living in poverty, are educated through this moment in time so that we're not making the investment on the back end into the criminal system. You know, and then I know we have representatives from DC Central Kitchen here. And, you know, I've been blessed to sit on the board of that organization for the last few years. And when I approached them and I said, hey, we're doing this, they didn't hesitate. They said, we'll deliver the food our daggone self. You ain't even got to come get it. You know, I'll do my shameless plug for DC Central Kitchen. That food is bomb. It is. This is not, you know, the peanut butter and jelly sandwich just slapped together with 2 dry pieces of bread. Hot food delivered to our kids every single day. When they walk through those doors, I wish I had a school like that. It's like they going to a resort.
It smells good in there. It smells great.
It smells good, and they feel even better about themselves. You know, and the list can go on, from the mental health services that have been provided through DXT partners and the umbrellas coming on board, to even the commitment. You know, I just really want to celebrate DC Central Kitchen because they've gone above and beyond, even to what we're looking to do in the next few weeks, where we're looking to eliminate the basic need for food in the good zone, to even provide groceries to every resident that's living in the Southwest housing community. Like, this happens not because we have to check a box or because we want praise. There's work happening in the Southwest community that people don't even know about. And it's because people are just coming to work to do it every single day. And they're not looking for praise or attention, but are doing it because they care. And I'm just blessed to be a part of that humble troop.
Thank you, Darius. So thank you for sharing all that. I know folks are going to have questions and probably have already asked you questions about how. How did you really manage to get all of these partnerships in one place, to have, you know, all the things that you named, right? How did you manage to pull something that seemed like such a great feat off, especially during a pandemic? We're going to get to that, but I know that you're not going to toot your own horn. And so in Ms. Spencer's absence, I just want to say some of what she shared with me, which was, for for those of you watching and attending this webinar right now, Miss Christine Spencer is an amazing woman. I immediately felt warmth and just a sincerity in her when we spoke. She has been a part of and lived in the James Creek community for over 50 years. And I asked her, I said, well, you know, why Darius? Why Good Projects? Like, what made you? I'm sure you've seen so many organizations come through through your community in the past 50 years. And she said, well, you know, this young group of guys, they just kind of approached me and they came up and, you know, I said, oh, okay, you're going to do a camp. And she was just thoroughly impressed with the way that they were able to really bring youth across the community from different schools, from different backgrounds to participate in the camp. And she said what really made her trust in Good Projects was the consistency and the true desire to want to listen and to partner and to have her guide. And so I'm going to toot your own horn there, Darius, but I'm also going to turn to Dr. Athey and Principal Sykes to speak a little bit more about the partnerships and the true power in partnerships. And so Dr. Athey, I want to shift to you. Coming from George Washington University and the nursing school, can you speak a little bit about your collaboration with Good Projects and with the Good Learning Hub? Can you speak a little bit more about the actual kind of the nuts and bolts of the partnership, some more about the resources that you all and the support that you're providing to the Good Learning Hub, and why this collaboration is so important to you in the community?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks. So this actually started off, it's a little bit interesting. So I wear kind of two hats. I'm part-time faculty at GW in the nursing school, and then I also have been running the mobile health program at United Medical Center. So I actually got connected because of the work that I've been doing on the mobile health program and a partnership that I created with the DC Housing Authority through that. And then through that work, I learned about Good Projects and the Learning Hub. I guess it was the end of the summer, or right when they were getting started. And so Byron Pugh from DC Housing said, hey, you know, you're teaching nursing students in community health. Would they be interested in coming on and helping to support this learning hub that's being created? And so for me, I thought, oh, this is perfect. This is awesome, because for us, you know, this is a community health course. So, you know, this is an accelerated bachelor's program for nurses. And so all of the students have other degrees and backgrounds and other things, but this is really the one course that kind of steps outside of a clinical environment that can be out in the community. And so the whole purpose of the course is to learn more about social determinants of health. So, you know, how people's health is impacted by where they live and they work and they play, right? So we teach so much in this course about the social determinants and about how much of, you know, clinical care and clinical services are only about 20% of someone's health. But the physical environment and the social and economic factors and the health behaviors, that really accounts for most of people's health. So this is like an amazing way to come in to see people in a public housing community, working with Good Projects, you know, focused around education to really see how all of the things impact health. So for me, it was just like an amazing opportunity right off the bat. And then, of course, COVID provided this opportunity to come in because they really needed support in that area. So as you could see from the video, we've had nursing students who are kind of manning the front desk. It's our own little version of like a school health clinic or summer camp clinic. And so they do COVID screening when students come through the door. You know, we're very, very strict about, you know, anybody that's been sick or anybody with a fever, you know, cannot come in, because we really need to, you know, preserve the integrity of this learning hub to keep everybody safe. Because, you know, as we said over and over again, like if, you know, if one kid gets sick, then it really could just wipe out the program. So I do feel like they play an important role. But then as time has rolled on, we've started to, you know, do more engagement with the students and their families. And so the first, you know, semester, which was the fall, we had basically just the COVID screening set up and some engagement with students and doing some health education topics. So of course, talking about wearing masks and hand washing and social distancing and all these things related to COVID. But then now we're starting to branch off and move into other health topics. You know, it's kind of a wide range of ages of the kids, but there's still a lot of things, you know, like mental health and, you know, just the stress that families are enduring during this time. So we've moved to kind of address some of those topics topics. And then most recently, we have a pediatrics group that's coming in now on Fridays. And so that is a group of 5 pediatric nursing students who come through, and they are creating a virtual Ask a Nurse. So this will be open to parents from the Learning Hub, as well as other people in the community that, you know, if you haven't been able to see the pediatrician, or you haven't had the school nurse to go to because schools have been closed, just providing an opportunity to come in and ask a clinician, you know, any kind of health information, and also maybe get some resources in the community, link back to your doctor's office or any other kind of health resources. So we're kind of expanding that as we go. But I would just say, you know, it's just been an awesome collaboration. I mean, it really is like a definition of an authentic community partnership that Good Projects has really started here. And I think we're just sort of layering on. And, you know, we're trying to support them in a way, as are the other partners in this group. But it's been really, really amazing for the students. And for me, it's been like an ideal setting for them to come and learn and serve. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. AP. Thank you for that. And so, and I'm continuing with the theme of partnerships here, Principal Sykes. You've already been, I was looking at the chat, you have folks giving you rave reviews in the chat box. I don't know if you've seen that, but would love to hear from you. Again, there's so many different types of partners that are really allowing for the Good Learning Hub to be a success. Would love to hear from you from your perspective. So similar question, but a bit different. When you think about Amadon Bowen and the students that you serve, and you think about the biggest needs or gaps that you have seen that both students, educators, and families have had to navigate during virtual learning, what impact or role has the Good Learning Hub played? I know you referenced that in the video, also referenced that one of the first things that needed to be mitigated was just access to technology. So can you speak a little bit to that?
Yes. Before I speak to that, though, I do want to just piggyback on this piece in terms of Darius and his team. I met him a few years ago, and it's interesting how tables turn. He came to the school. They were looking for space for the summer program. At the time, we had construction and some other things going on, but he hasn't stopped there. He has been patient, polite, but persistent in a way that really matters and that builds trust. And so when this thing happened that we never would have expected, and the tables kind of turned, it made sense for us to be able to, and I trusted them to send our kids and families to the Good Learning Hub. It's been said, so I mean, I don't want to necessarily rehash, but typically schools are the hub of the community, providing support in terms of food security, mental health and wellness, like all of these things. And when that stopped, it was really difficult for us to pivot and to think about how we were going to get all of these things done through other people, right? And so in kind of walks the Good Learning Hub. Initially, some of our families were able to kind of partner up and make decisions that made sense for their families in terms of managing the rigors of virtual learning with jobs, and then also just caretaking, right, of their children and loved ones at home. And there were others that maybe were able to provide for supervision for their students, but they really didn't have their children, rather, but they really didn't have the kind of support in terms of safe, quiet place where there's an adult who can provide the kind of assistance that was needed. Because imagine if 33% of the kids before the pandemic had access to technology at home, it wasn't just an easy thing to really get started and be proficient with using the technology, not just the hardware, but also Microsoft Teams. And so having a person, having a dedicated space, having the motivation, even being around other students, was a really important piece. And I think the other thing is that I love this idea of the need coming from the people, right? You know, Miss Spencer came to him and said, we need this, right? And so often in schools, we are kind of one size fits all entities, maybe not intentionally, but just by just historically, that's what it's been. And for them to hear a need and be able to respond so quickly and be so willing to extend themselves and continue to work with the schools and other members of the community is not just remarkable, but it's refreshing.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that, Principal Sykes. It is definitely helpful to hear how you came in contact with Darius and Good Projects, and specifically the role that the hub has played in your community, specifically with your students. I believe Ms. Spencer is joining us. Give her a moment to join. But Ms. Sykes, I'd like to continue with an additional question, if it's okay. You spoke to, oh, hello, Ms. Spencer. She's joining us. Ms. Sykes, you spoke to how Good Projects is an organization that's a great example of being a connector that has worked to really gain support and trust in the community. Was your kind of process for trusting Darius and Good Projects the same as that I spoke to about with Miss Spencer?
Yeah, I mean, so I think there are a couple of things, and I know I am kind of that feeling person. You know, you kind of have a feeling about someone, and then you watch and you see what they do, and that they follow through on what they say. And all of those pieces were in place. He and his team have a great energy. And so that was, you know, evident from the beginning. But in terms of really thinking about how a project like Good Project or Good Learning Hub really could kind of fill in this gap, I was thinking really about just the need to elevate parent voice and parent communication, right? And sometimes parents have feelings about schools. They have their own experiences with school. And as much as you try to reach out and connect and let them know what's going on, they may feel comfortable with someone else, right? And he is, among others, you know, on the call, they're all like representatives of the community that may have more social capital with some members than others. And together, when we put our efforts together, we can reach more people. So it doesn't really matter to me how the kids get to the online classes. It's just that they have that access.
And they get the class. Yeah. Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Principal Sykes. Ms. Spencer.
100%. Can I just quickly just harp on that, you know, and that doesn't go just one way, because I think just having that trust in one another and understanding that we're all on the same team, I think is what continues to propel us forward. Right, because even as DCPS is open, then we have, you saw in the video, our amazing lead at the Learning Hub, Ms. Paige Baxter. There's students that we understand would benefit better being back in a classroom environment. You know, where you see a lot of times in this space, it's like, oh, we got a good thing going. Oh, we're getting funded for it. Oh, we're in the news for it. Now we want all the attention. We don't want anybody to leave. But just truly understanding why we are doing this work has allowed us to serve kids at the highest level and will allow us to continue to serve kids and their families at the highest level as we move forward. So I think Principal Sykes is spot on with that.
Yeah. Thank you, Darius. Ms. Spencer, thank you for joining us this evening. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you, guys. I apologize for jumping in late. I do apologize. Totally.
No worries at all. We're glad that you were able to join us.
Good.
So I've spoken a little bit about you already, and kind of shared some of what you shared with us, really going back to when you first met Darius and Good Projects, and just about how long you've been in the community. But I would love for you to speak a little bit to what your role and involvement has been with the Good Learning Hub. Can you speak a little bit about that? What has your role been, and what is your relationship with Darius and the Good Projects team been since the beginning?
Well, once again, let me tell you the story. I met Darius a few years ago. He came to Southwest, him and he had a few other folks with him, and they said, well, we want to do all of these things in the community. And, you know, of course, we're the Dow Joneses, but I mean, they did a camp in Southwest with over 200 children. It was 200 kids at that camp, and it was amazing. I've never seen anything like it. And we were sold. We were like, okay. They did that camp that whole entire summer. We had so many folks talking about it. When camp was over, they came back and they said, so what's next? What are we doing next in the community? And they've been here ever since. If they say they're going to do something, they'll do it. So that's my relationship with Darius. If I say, hey, Darius, we're over here and this is what we need. Okay, Miss Spencer, they make it happen.
Nice.
So I just want to know, for any of my board members that are here, at least you know who to blame going forward.
Well, Ms. Spencer definitely told the story better than I could. So thank you, Ms. Spencer, for sharing the story. You said if you call on Darius, you know, he's in Good Projects, they will definitely respond and deliver. Are you speaking with him often? What is your
Yes, a matter of fact, he just came in. We were at the food bank. We do food distribution over at James Creek, and he just he came over and he told me, so I think it's this Thursday or next Thursday, we're going to receive like 350 bags of groceries to add to our food pantry to distribute in our community. So that's another plus. I mean, every time we look, he's like, if it's a need for something, he's there to try to fill a gap. So he's definitely been a team player in Southwest, and we're glad to have him.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. And so when you think about the Learning Hub and its start, I know that Darius mentioned a number of other individuals who were involved in the early planning. Can you tell us a little bit about who else was involved? You, Darius, who were the others that were involved in some of the early planning around the Learning Hub?
So Rhonda Hamilton, she's our ANC commissioner. In addition to, she's a resident council leader as well. And we just had a general conversation. We didn't think it would have. So initially when we talked about the Learning Hub, we thought maybe just some tables and chairs in a courtyard. The pandemic had hit and we knew a lot of kids couldn't go back to school. And you had a lot of parents, you know, had multiple children and they couldn't sit down and, you know, help their kids out like, you know, like a teacher actually could. Can you hold for 1 minute, please? Hold on.
Of course.
Guys, I'm sorry, those are my grandchildren. So, but you have a lot of parents that had multiple children that couldn't basically help out the way they wanted to or could. Either they were working or, like I said, multiple children. So we were talking about how do we help, you know, help those children in this pandemic. You're not going to school. So what they did was, here they go again. I have 4 grandchildren here, and that's what kept me. I totally was sidetracked with all
It's okay. It's okay, Ms. Spencer.
So what we talked about basically is what can we do to, you know, help some of the parents out, and can't we, you know, like put tables and chairs and put it in the courtyards. We were going to do initially in each courtyard, maybe a table with some chairs and multiple children and some folks from Darius's place. But they went and found them a center and brought all the children over and put them in that pub. So they were on point.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. So before we shift to opening up for Q&A from those who are watching this and participating in the webinar this evening, I want to do a quick around question with you all, and we'll open it up. So just a reminder to everyone who's attending, if you have any questions, feel free to insert them in the Q&A, and we will pose those to our panelists momentarily. So in some of the conversations that we've had even prior to this evening, and even this evening, I'm hearing you all really reference just some of your learnings and what your experiences have been during this process. So I'd love to just open it up to whoever wants to kind of start us off, just to kind of maybe think about and capture one specific learning or lesson, if you can, that you have, just one thing you've learned through this process that you believe has truly shaped your vision for a path forward. As Darius mentioned, schools are opening. There's a path ahead of us for sure. And we know that the work will continue. But as you reflect on this time, what is one learning or even one innovation, just something, right, that you have learned during this time that has really shaped or informed your vision for the path forward?
Well, I'll jump in. I would say that we've been forced to do things differently, and that's something that I would like to see continue and to be sustained. Um, I think we as a school have tried to be more empathetic and open and thoughtful about what our families are going through during this time. And I think having an opportunity to team with other organizations elevates the performance for all of our organizations, right? There are lessons that we can learn from the Learning Hub, from GW and the nursing program. And the reason we're in the position that we're in now is because we needed each other. I don't want us to forget that. I'm always going to take Darius's call.
Nice. Thank you.
I can piggyback off that a little bit, because I think the main thing that I've learned is this like idea of the like power shared is power multiplied, right? So I think as an individual organization or entity or sector even, we can do so much, but when we come together and this kind of cross sector collaboration, you really see the power of the partnership really exponentially. And you learn from the other sectors things that you may not have considered, but then it sort of feeds off, an idea or something that you had thought of. So I think, for us being like healthcare and nursing, really to go across sectors and see, oh, this is interesting, we can work together. But then I think the outcome is exponentially greater than it would be, sort of alone in silos. So,
right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. AP.
Wow. It's a tough question to answer, because just even to the earlier points that I made, I don't think that necessarily is a question that I'm in a position or should be in a position to answer. What this moment in time really proved to me on a personal level and a professional level is that the theory that we had when we first stepped foot in Southwest, that if we provide the resources and the tools and the supports and the community that the leaders that were in Southwest needed, that they will guide the ship. And, this is not false humility when I sit, on this virtual stage and kind of continue to pass the mic. For those that know me on a personal level, I can talk crap with the best of them. But what I've seen since COVID struck was someone in Ms. Spencer that, without permission from anybody, set up a network of resident council presidents to distribute food even before the food arrived. What I've seen from a housing authority was a willingness to step aside and say, you know what, we trust community partners to show us what we need to do in this moment in time. What I've seen from a university world-class hospital system was to say, we're willing to dedicate resources to the Learning Hub and the housing project with all Black people. I say this, and maybe it doesn't answer the question in the way that it should. Tiffany, I say this from the bottom of my heart. I am blessed to do this work. I am blessed. Think about my day. I get to wake up in the morning and think creatively about how I'm going to make other people's lives better. My blessings are going to be great on the other side of this life. I truly mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah.
So when I think about a vision for the future, or even a vision for the next few months, all I can do is sit back and enjoy the ride, because I have the opportunity to follow the lead of amazing, again, passionate people that, equally to myself, love to do this work. And the community is realizing that we are here to listen. And, personally, we can sit and praise me. There's times I get calls that I'm doing stuff horribly wrong, but, at least we have that trust with one another. So now I can't answer that question, but I'm excited to find out.
Thanks, Darius. Ms. Spencer, would you like to answer the question about, is there one thing that you've learned through this process that, as you think about it, and like kind of the path that is before us?
just to piggyback off some of the things that some of the folks said. So in this pandemic, it was eye-opening for all of us. But I think the partnerships and the way folks jumped in to help truly made a difference, especially in my community. Folks came through, the partners. It was amazing. So I want to thank all of y'all, actually.
And I know they all want to thank you. But thank you so much, Ms. Spencer, for that. So we're going to get ready to transition to the Q&A. We have a few questions here. And there are a few that are similar. So I'm gonna throw this out maybe to you, Darius. Folks are asking, we have Ms. Gladys Whitehead, as well as Ms. Allison Gilmeister, Ms. Jessica Sutter. So there are a number of people asking questions just about what the next few months will look like. So folks are saying, you know, the lessons learned, the work that you're doing, how do you see, what role do you see the Good Learning Hub playing as we transition to moving students back into school? Any thoughts about that?
No, 100%. We have an amazing team being led by people that you saw in the video, Miss Autumn Thomas, Miss Paige Baxter, Dr. Nora Green Lane. We have Taylor Welch that has joined us from AmeriCorps, and we have obviously an amazing team that handles, you know, the students and their learning during the day. And then as recently, my partner in crime is Inez Douglas that's joined us. We've all really continued to put our heads together, and even through the leadership of our board of directors. And you know, this moment in time has really shown us more than anything. And this is not exclusive to families that are living in the Southwest housing community, but our mental health needs to be everyone's priority. And our team has taken that charge full speed. You know, obviously DCPS will continue to roll more and more kids in as the vaccine continues to pick up. And I want to reiterate for anybody that's on this call, whether from the school system that's funding Good Projects, that is thinking about doing this, Good Projects has no aspiration to replace the school system. That directly goes against everything that we stand for and building up, you know, the institutions that exist to support our communities. What we did in this moment in time was react to a need. But having a strong public school system, having a, you know, innovative charter school system is what's going to really drive the education of low income, or in our case, low income Black students, both here in DC and around the country. So we want to continue to be a support system for DCPS from an education standpoint, but continue to double down and ensuring that the trauma that youth and their parents experience during these last, call it 12 to 16 months, doesn't carry on for the next 12 to 16 years. And that's really where we want to continue to make our investment over the next few months as we continue to move along with family success planning.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. Principal Sykes, do you have any thoughts on, again, similar question here, but kind of going back to the question around lessons learned. If you think about what you've learned and what all of you have learned from the Good Learning Hub, are there things that you think you've seen here that can really help inform work of reconnecting students once schools kind of transition in the spring and summer?
So I think there's this piece about connection and motivation and relationship and rapport, particularly with our older students. Sometimes when you know, you have fallen behind or school seems harder or feels harder, or it doesn't seem as exciting to get up and go to school every day, I see an organization like GOODProjects as maybe a bridge in a way to kind of continue to use some of those strategies in terms of having fun. I don't know about the basketball in the classroom, but definitely this idea that you can still have fun. You will be supported. We will take you as you are, we will sit next to you and help guide you to get you to where you need to be. And, part of what we want to do is have someone, I always said this as a teacher, I might not be able to connect with every single one of my kids, but I expect that someone else on my team will be able to, right? And so you had one of, I think, I'm not going to say his name, but I think it was MR that was in the video with you. That was one of my former students who's a big relationship kid, right? And I think that those are the kinds of intangible benefits of partnerships and being connected and staying connected, because it really becomes a village.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So there's a question here that I think is maybe a good segue here, but it is one of our attendees is asking about social and emotional support for students. And you all have spoken to this in a few different ways tonight. And so wondering what has this support looked like during this time? And that can go to any of you, Dr. Athey, Principal Sykes, Darius, anyone can answer that question. What does social emotional support look like, or needs that you've seen specifically?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that, and then would love to pass it to Aaron, as we've been thinking very deeply about the health outcomes for our families. But it's the greatest need. I'm gonna just take us down for a minute. I don't want to kill the vibe. I know we've been having a great time, but the Learning Hub hasn't been all fun and games. There's been, we're amongst family. I'll speak honestly. We've had kids that have wanted to commit suicide, and not just one. We've had kids that have been exposed to sex trafficking. We've had, very clearly parents that, are not getting enough sleep and are taking that out on their children. The isolation alone is affecting families. We can make a cool video and jazz it up so people be like, oh my gosh, this is so fun and they're having a great time. But there's real challenges that, our team is having to, I'm not gonna say deal with, but manage every single day. Mm-hmm. Ms. Paige Baxter said it time and time again, and I'm learning from her throughout this process. It's 34 years of education, and even through the support of groups like CapX that have been there with our students. I know they're going through some things with them today. How can we ever expect a student to want to learn math or science when they're coming into the classroom with all of this baggage and no fault of their own, not knowing how to manage it, because a lot of times they don't even know it's there. When we talk about the investment that we want to make, just to talk hard numbers, we made over $300,000 investment into the Learning Hub, and we've only been open since around when did we open up? Right in the middle of September. That's not even close to the amount of investment that DCPS makes in the same level of students over the same period of time. But we want to double that investment into the mental health services, because before, and this is not just for our youth, this is for the parent also. You can't talk about workforce development. You can't talk about, attendance or grade point averages when you're not taking care of the whole person, when you're not taking care of the whole family. We all have, and let's not even just talk about students in Southwest, just think about somebody in your own life for a second, because we all got them. I know we might got more than one. Like that person that we've been trying to drill for years and years, trying to get them up to do something different with their lives. Give them all the opportunity in the world, maybe send them a little money every single month, but they never seem to get it right. Mm-hmm. And why is that? Because their mental isn't there, because they're not feeling confident, because they're not feeling hopeful, because maybe they're not getting the supports they need to see a bigger picture for themselves. Like the work that we're doing, income, we'll talk about $14,000 a year compared to a living wage in DC of around $80,000. But we can provide all the jobs in the world that we want. If people don't see something greater for themselves, then we're gonna have to come back after 20, 30, 10 years later and do it all over again. And come back 10 years later and do it all over again. The reason somebody like Ms. Spencer has been able to do what she does in the community and do it at such a high level, you can even look at the background of her house. I've been in there, it's a pretty nice house. It's because she sees something greater for herself, for her grandkids, for her community, and they'll go off to become doctors, lawyers, astronauts. But it's sad to say that everybody in our community doesn't see that for themselves. But it's our hope, that we're able to, break the mold. We're trying to do something that's never been done before, Tiffany. We really are. And I'll pass to Erin, because I know one of the hopes that she has is that we can open up or we're already in the process of opening up a community health clinic.
Mm-hmm.
So with mental health supports being just one of the small pieces of the puzzle of that.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Athey?
Yeah, sure. No, I think this is a really important topic. I mean, I always say, like, mental health is the foundation of your well-being, right? So if you have no mental health, you have no health. I mean, it really is at the core. And I think, before COVID, we know that people were experiencing trauma and daily trauma and the big T trauma and the little T trauma and these types of things. And now even more, as Darius is mentioning, there's more trauma, and there's the trauma of the family. And the adverse childhood events and all these things that we know exist and we know existed before COVID, and now are probably just going to get exacerbated due to COVID. We are, I think some of the things that we're doing really, just to be very basic, is just kind of reaching out to people in our context that we know, right? So, we've had a couple calls, and Darius has already brought in some other, a few mental health groups to do some work with the kids in the hub. We know much more is needed. I mean, it's a very tall order, and I think we're going to have to sort of think creatively, as COVID, goes away, and, as we continue these partnerships and continue to work in the Greenleaf community with families and the family success planning, sort of how to better do that. One of the ways, as Darius mentioned, is we are looking to, create a place-based clinic, an actual tangible clinic in the Greenleaf community to help serve, everyone who lives there, not just the kids in the Learning Hub, but the greater community there, and help with, navigation and healthcare, connection, referrals, these types of things. But this is all just sort of in the beginning phases, and I think the need is tremendous. We had a small little group. I actually developed this program that was called the Healing Route with a colleague of mine who is a spoken word artist. And so we trained some youth in the community to teach other youth about mental health literacy. Like, what is mental health? What does this mean? What is mental illness? How are these things, how do they show up in your life, and sort of what can you do? And that's just like a small example of a project that we had. But I see this continuing need and more, sort of brainstorming and ideas around how to support that, because it's such a tremendous thing, and it's not a simple, can't just give a Band-Aid for this, right? These are things that are deeply ingrained in people that have been there for a long time, and families, generational types of issues that, take a lot. So I'm open to hear suggestions, honestly, as we start to kind of try and tackle some of this.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Athey. So there are a few people also who in our Q&A here who've asked questions. I'm kind of continuing in the same theme of, the path forward, right? As we look ahead, some of calling it the path to recovery. You've talked a little bit here about mental health, right, and social emotional support, and like this will continue. It sounds like with some of the things that you're thinking through, Dr. Athey, and your continued partnership with Good Projects as well. Darius, I know that the Learning Hub right now is serving 20 students. Is that correct? Uh-oh, Darius?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Okay.
Yes. How many students are you currently serving at the Learning Hub? 20, is that correct?
22 students, yes.
22 students. And so there are some people here in our Q&A who are asking, are there additional partnerships needed? Are there other students who and families who have reached out and wanting to be a part of the Learning Hub? Can you speak to kind of, what you're hearing from the community, and if it's that you want to serve more, or kind of can you just speak a little bit to that?
Well, first I want to make sure you can hear me okay. I think my
Yes.
internet connection, okay, perfect. I'll shamelessly plug, our claim to fame in the Southwest community was the camp that we ran with 200 students. And that was because somebody stepped up and gave us the space. You know, if you build it, I mean, if you provide it for us, we'll build it and they'll come. Like, straight up, I can't say it any other. You know, we're a lowly nonprofit trying to do what we can. One of the reasons even we developed this model of partnerships, when we first got started, we ain't had no money. So we had to count on people like, hey, we can offer this. Can you offer this other thing? You know, we don't have $2 million to buy a building in Southwest Washington, at least not today. If somebody want to step up, hey, you know, we'll take it. But, you know, you look at the limitations, and I'll say limitations because even with 6,000 square feet, there's really, we have to make sure that we're being safe and spacing people out. And that was something that we were very thoughtful about, which is why we've had the health outcomes that we've had as far as no COVID cases.
Right.
But it really comes down to the space for us. If I can be so literal, we're an innovative, creative group. So as we continue to want to ramp up, I know I don't want to speak out of turn, but we're in conversations right now with DPR to look to expand our services in the Southwest community. But I know there are a number of developers that are continuing to build and are looking for nonprofit partners, and even people on this line may have some of those relationships. And even the housing authority, as the redevelopment comes to Southwest, I know they're keeping good projects in mind for permanent space that we can continue to activate. But, you know, we've shown, you know, and this is where our two teams horn, you know, we've shown that, you know, we're willing to be innovative. We're willing to be nimble. To Ms. Spencer's point, we were going to set up tables outside. I was researching heated tents. Like, we were trying to figure out how we were going to get through winter.
So Darius, I'm wondering, and there are some questions here as well. Do you need additional partnerships? And if so, are there specific partnerships that would have the greatest impact as you think about the need for the community and the hub?
Yeah.
And how can folks partner? Folks are asking, how can they partner?
Well, you know, we're not hard to find. I'm not hard to find. We're in the same space, 203 N Street Southwest every day. Make sure you check in with Miss Paige Baxter because she locks the door at the front. Like, but you know, as we continue to go deeper into the mental health space, we need partners that are thinking about workforce development, but thinking about it in a holistic way. It's not enough coming out of this moment in time just to say, hey, I have this job, send me 10 people. You know, that's not going to cut it. We need job training. We need people that are willing to accommodate the needs of our families and willing to go sometimes above and beyond for them. And we're not just asking people to do that. We employ residents from Southwest also. And there's barriers that we have to overcome, but we're willing to do that because we know where we want to go. So right now, mental health and then holistic workforce development. And then obviously for our youth, social emotional learning partners.
Thank you. So as a final question, although we have a number of other Q&As here, another number of other questions here, that we'll make sure, Darius, that those that are directed to you and otherwise we'll make sure those questions get to you all. But for people who are thinking about organizations, individuals who are thinking about doing something similar, attempting to do this type of work, is there any advice that any of you would offer? And that could go to any of you. Ms. Spencer, do you have any advice? I don't
Yes.
want to stop. Yes. Okay.
Yes. I think you have to stay consistent, and you have to keep in mind the folks that you serve. You're gonna have to just remember it's not gonna be what you think it is, but you have to stay consistent. You stay consistent and you see it through, you'll be fine.
Perfect. And Ms. Spencer, so you know, there's someone in our question and answer box here who teaches a parent and community engagement class at Howard. His name is James Jackson, and he's wondering if you're interested in being interviewed or speaking to his class. So I'll follow up with you after about that.
All right.
Anyone else have any thoughts, advice for folks interested in doing this work? Darius is smiling and laughing. I don't know if that means you have advice.
I've done such I don't want to get myself in trouble. I'd have made it this far.
Okay. Principal Sykes or Dr. Athey?
I think for us, it really is just about really listening to the needs of the community. And so we came kind of to the table with some preconceived ideas about what we could do. And then when we weren't in a position to do it, schools didn't open, it was really important for us to continue to listen and not give up, right? So even if it is a situation where you're not able to provide the service, really keeping some sort of robust list that you can refer to and easily share resources or direct folks to others. That's something that we had to kind of mobilize and be able to do in this time.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think also just, yeah, probably echoing what others have said, but just kind of showing up in service, like we're just here. And, you know, we were fortunate that, you know, Darius and Good Projects had done so much of the initial community engagement work, right? So like a lot of that relationship building and trust was already there. It wasn't just like somebody new fresh coming in and having an idea of what's going to happen. It was, that foundation was sort of laid out, and then we are just sort of layering in and sort of building upon and filling in the gaps. And I think that's maybe sort of, you know, an idea for others that want to do this is, you know, that initial work takes time. And I know Darius had mentioned to me before that when they first got started, they were really intimately involved with the families and going to the grocery store and going to church and like really getting to be a part of their lives, you know, the fabric of their lives. And so that has to be, you know, that authentic partnership that's there from the beginning. And then I think you can kind of layer on and continue to keep that trust as long as you're there to support and, you know, and do what's needed. I think that's the key.
Thank you so much.
And I'll just piggyback off of that to finish. You know, like the best advice that I could give anyone that is stepping into this space is to have fun. You know, I am blessed to have grown up in a household with a DC public school teacher that went above and beyond for her students. And there was nights where I would watch her and be like, why are you up at 12 o'clock at night still working on your lesson plan? And she would have the brightest grin across her face. And I didn't get it when I was growing up until I started doing this work. And it's Gandhi. I was actually watching a video from Gandhi this morning. So I'll use one of his quotes. He said, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And I can say, here I am 5 years into this space and even sitting on this panel, like just as excited as the first day that I walked in. If you are not having fun in this work, it's going to be a long road. I promise you. And people are going to notice. Like when you step foot into, whether it's a community, whether it's into a schoolhouse, a courthouse, a jail cell, whatever it is, you have to understand that it is a blessing to do this. And I've said that once because I really want to drive it home. And when you look at it like that, you see that you're no better or no worse than anybody that you work with. That they are your family in this fight. And when you look at it like that, it becomes easy. It becomes absolutely easy. That's the best advice that I could give.
Darius, thank you so much. I think that is a great note to close our panel this evening on. Thank you so much, Ms. Spencer, Principal Sykes, and Dr. Athey for joining us. As our participants are entering takeaways and actionable steps that they'll take after this convening in the chat, I'll thank you all again. And we'll proceed to get ready to close out our convening for this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye.